According to The Athletic, immediately after Milwaukee waived Damian Lillard, he received calls about joining a team this season despite him not likely to play. And per that report, the teams that have called about him and would have interest in signing him this season include your very own Los Angeles Lakers, no surprise there at all, then with the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics, kind of the golden triad for teams that are linked to big name free agents. And well, once again, that does happen to be true. And then for a follow-up report to that report, this coming from Chris Haynes, and according to him, Lillard would sign with the team under the quote-unquote right terms and conditions, which would likely be a full season of rehabbing and then joining their team for the next season, or potentially for a very late playoff push. So with that in mind here, would the long-term outlook be worth a short-term hold for Damian Lillard, signing him this season despite him not likely to play, but then getting him for potentially a really cheap price and getting a guy that could potentially help your team 2 years down the road? That's up for debate here, but the Lakers apparently would have interest in doing it and signing Damian Lillard for more of the long term rather than the short term this season, which would require them to waive somebody first, and they could do that by simply waiving Shake Milton, the non-guaranteed contract of Shake Milton. So yes, it theoretically could be possible, but is it the right route and the right option for them to take here? We'll talk about that and try to break it all down here. And well, beginning with Damian Lillard, this one's definitely the more controversial one, as again, he likely won't play next season. I mean, we're still talking about an all-star level player, a guy that's definitely a top 20 NBA player when healthy yet, but that's kind of the question here with him. Will he be the same player after coming back from the torn Achilles? I mean, for every Kevin Durant, there's also plenty of guys that don't come back the same and definitely are not the same from that kind of injury. Not to mention the fact that Dame will turn 35 in roughly 10 days here. Will he be the same coming back from a torn Achilles and being 35 or potentially 36 the next time we see him on the court? I kind of doubt it, unfortunately. And then not only that, but again having to wait for him to come back, signing him this season, which probably would only take a veteran minimum contract simply to hold him and then wait for the long term here. Again, with him coming back and potentially adding him to a team with Luka Doncic, would the wait be worth it, and would holding the roster spot be worth it, even for a guy like Damian Lillard? Well, that's up for debate here, and it might be controversial, but I'm gonna say no. For a team like the Lakers or any other contending team or team trying to contend for that fact, I really don't think it would make a ton of sense for them. Yes, again, the potential long-term gain here, but we're talking about a team that's trying to do something in the short term, trying to compete for a championship, trying to build a championship team around Luka Doncic and LeBron James, showing that by signing more of a short-term, I guess, high-risk kind of thing with DeAndre Ayton, obviously the best center left on the free agent market, but that's pointing to them trying to compete right now, despite the reports that say they're trying to keep their cap space for 2027. I think that's simply more about LeBron leaving their team by that point and thus opening up a max contract for their team at that point, but I still think they're ultimately trying to compete right now and trying to build a championship level team, which wouldn't really correlate with holding a spot for a guy that won't play this season, even though his name does happen to be Damian Lillard. So in my opinion, probably not the best route for them to take, kind of a distraction in a way even, I guess, kind of thinking about what could be or what will it be with Damian Lillard as he doesn't play and simply sits on their bench and unfortunately is rehabbing from that torn Achilles. And that's coming from a guy that is a big Damian Lillard fan. I've always liked him, so it definitely would be fun to have him as a Laker, but I'm not sure that would be the best route for them to take, even though it wouldn't cost much. But again, he wouldn't play this season, and he might not look the same coming back from that injury, which would then have to be coupled with paying him next summer. Yes, he might take a veteran minimum contract this season, but that does not mean he'd take it again next summer. After that point, he'd probably look for a pretty large contract again. Maybe not a max contract coming off a torn Achilles and then being 36, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him ask for roughly 30 to 40 million per year. At that point, the cap would be higher, so that's roughly half a max contract, but still, even at that point, that would be a lot to commit for a guy coming off a ruptured Achilles and probably being only about 3 to 4 years away from retirement at best. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.